2019 has seen a dramatic increase in the publicity on the vape industry, and that's not exactly a good thing.
E-cigarettes, vape pens, Juuls. They're often marketed as safe alternatives to smoking, but their cool designs, fun flavors, and the fact that they're easy to hide means it's not only smokers who want them, it's kids.
Now to that new White House move to take on vaping. President Trump proposing a ban on the sale of most flavored e-cigarettes following hundreds of cases of vaping-related illnesses.
People think vaping is wonderful, it's great. It's really not wonderful. That's one thing I think we can say definitely.
With all those various flavors, it is teenagers that we are finding in many cases are drawn to using vaping, thinking that it isn't as harmful as cigarettes. Heather?
Whether it be articles and reports regarding an increase in youth vaping, scares of respiratory illnesses or deaths, or flavor bans, I want to hop in on this discussion not only as someone who's been vaping for over 6 years, but someone that has been active in the industry both on the retail side and the manufacturing side. Well, that's a lot to take in. What's up, everybody? My name's Jared. I work under the name Vapes, and here's my take on the great vaping crisis of the 21st century. Now, let's start off this video with something that you may not hear normally from a vaping advocate, and here's the first point. Vaping's not 100% healthy. Now, if you don't smoke, I wouldn't advocate for you to start vaping, but is it a healthy alternative? Of course, 100%. There's only been about 6 confirmed deaths from vaping since its initial release in around, I would say, 2003 to 2004. That's when the first prototype started coming out. However, if you do smoke combustible cigarettes, you're about 50% likely to die from smoking-related illnesses. Now, vaping isn't just a hobbyist thing. It's not just for flavor. The first and foremost directive of all vape companies is to have harm reduction for those that are smoking and have it be an aid for nicotine dependency and smoking dependency and trying to reduce those numbers. Now let's get some of these boring statistics out of the way before we start getting into more of like my own personal opinions. So let's start with some data. Starting off our data, we're going to be talking about the main compound that everyone seems to be freaked out about, and that is nicotine. So referencing medical news today, nicotine is both a stimulant and a sedative. Nicotine can stimulate the adrenal glands, resulting in adrenaline release. Through this, there can be an increase in heart rate or blood pressure. Additionally, there is a dopamine release when using nicotine, and that affects your pleasure receptors, and it also helps stimulate. It's good for memory retention and focus. Nicotine can cause raised alertness, euphoria, or a sensation of being relaxed, as well as an improvement in memory and concentration due to the increase in acetylcholine and norepinephrine. I don't think I pronounced that right, but I'll put the word right here. Bing! It can also increase levels of beta endorphin, which can reduce anxiety. Depending on your health condition, nicotine can be harmful to you, especially if you're prone to numerous heart conditions or blood pressure conditions. And of course, it can be an addictive substance. I mean, every product that contains nicotine or is vaping related now has a warning notifying you that it can be an addictive substance. However, this substance is actually very similar to one that maybe all of you consume on a regular basis, and that's caffeine. Similar to caffeine, it is a stimulant. It does increase heart rate at some capacity. It does sharpen your focus a little bit. Scientific American has an article that Ann McNeil says the overall science community is trying to demonize the use of nicotine. And for some reason, safe nicotine consumption has not caught on with the American public. It's a little bit more prevalent in the UK due to doctors prescribing vaping for previous smokers. It's more scientifically analyzed there, I would say, a bit more than it is here, or even if it is sort of analyzed in the same respect, the American audience is not as receptive to the scientific information as the UK market. So on top of all this, it is sort of a political argument. It's an emotional argument for some people. And I feel like the scientific argument should be brought into the realm a little bit more, and specifically published scientific journal, scientific stuff, not just clickbait things that you see from a BuzzFeed article on Facebook. Speaking of scientific journals, I'm just going to reference 2 of them really quick and then we'll get this out of the way. The first one is going to be the PHE or Public Health England research. Now, from their research, they found that every minute someone is admitted to the hospital from smoking, with around 79,000 deaths in England alone. And they find that vaping is about 95% less harmful than smoking. Granted, it's not 100%, but it is better than the alternative. With smoking, you inhale a lethal mix of about 7,000 compounds, 70 of which are known to cause cancer. And one thing that people always forget is that people smoke for the nicotine, but a lot of times they're dying from the tar. And nicotine causes little of the harm. Really, it does, as I said earlier, it does affect heart rate, it does affect blood pressure, but that's not the main issue here. People are dying from all the contaminants inside cigarettes versus the nicotine. Next, we'll just quickly summarize the studies found from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. Now, if you want to be my guest and read the report, there's about 800 pages, so go have fun. But realistically, I'll just go over the bullet points for this guy. Going from the most to the least amount of evidence, we'll start off saying there's conclusive evidence that substituting e-cigarettes for combustible tobacco reduces the amount of toxicants and carcinogens present in tobacco cigarettes. There's substantial evidence that switching from regular use of tobacco to e-cigarettes reduces short-term adverse health outcomes. There's moderate evidence that the risk and severity of dependence are lower for e-cigarettes than there are for tobacco cigarettes. Among youth and young adult e-cigarette users who ever use tobacco cigarettes, there's limited evidence that e-cigarette use increases in the near term the duration of subsequent combustible tobacco smoking. There is insufficient evidence that e-cigarette use is associated with long-term changes in heart rate, blood pressure, or cardiac geometry and function. And of course, there's all these no available evidence for various health risks. This could be due to the surveys needing to be longer and more time spent on these studies, but at the moment there is no definite outcomes. Now, the big hype that's been going around recently has been all the reports of vaping-related illnesses, and all the hospitalizations, the lung respiratory diseases, all sort of lumped in together. Now, there's a big misconception that's going around in the news regarding this, and that is due to them lumping it all in as vaping, when really what it is black market THC products. Now, a lot of these black market products have been known to contain vitamin E acetate, which is used as a thickening agent to make these bootleg THC cartridges seem like they're better quality, due to them being a little bit thicker and it's not runny of a material or anything. Specifically, I know a lot of these cartridges were packaged in the Dank Vape cartridge boxes, and just to show you how easy it is to fake these products, I'm just going to run through how quickly I can find the boxes for them, either on Amazon, eBay, or some sort of packaging website. Now, to make yourself seem like a reputable cartridge dealer, all you have to do is type up Dank Vape packaging. And now, when I looked this up a few months ago, you could actually buy them off Amazon. Thankfully, Amazon has removed this as a listing, and you cannot find these cartridges anymore. However, if you just pretty much just search the same exact thing and click the link right below the Amazon one, it does take you to a packaging website where you can buy these Dank Vape boxes with like the holographs and everything. You can get bulk batches of about 1,000 for roughly $140 US. Now, like I said earlier, Dank Vape is not a real company. So Mark Hoashi, the founder of Doja, which is pretty much Yelp for cannabis, says that they act like a cannabis company, but they don't actually exist. They're actually in the packaging industry. People are just buying these packaging and then filling up cartridges, and then people think that it's a reputable dealer. And for some additional info about these bootleg cartridges, Myron Renee, CEO of Bel Costa Labs in California, tells Inverse, which I got the previous quote from, that they often see black market products containing unsafe levels of this fungicide, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this one right now.
Myclobutanil.
But essentially, when heated at high levels, it can create hydrogen cyanide, and you can find this in smoking cigarettes, but at large doses, this is lethal. And interesting enough, you can find that hydrogen cyanide was a major component in Zyklon B used in Nazi gas chambers. And unregulated products basically create this whole problem in the industry where there's no product testing, there's no fact checking, there's nothing. So in my opinion, this brings up the argument that legalization of both medicinal and recreational is beneficial due to it limiting the amount of access that these black market cartridges have on the industry. Oh, it's a whole new day. It's a whole new outfit. It's a whole new hat. let's get it going. So to sort of wrap up this video, I'm going to be talking about my personal experience with vaping as far as my credits or experience in the industry as well. So I had my first cigarette when I was about 14 years old. Not too proud of it, but that's the truth of the situation. I used to play in bands around my town, and whenever you were backstage or hanging out with the other bands that were playing on the lineup, you'd go behind the venue and you'd smoke with them, which is what happened. Started smoking from that. It was more casual through high school. The only times I'd really smoke would be like after school. I would just go to the park nearby and smoke with people. Or it would be when I could get away from my house, ride the bike across the neighborhood, go down the street, smoke a cigarette or two, come back, spray myself with Axe so your parents couldn't smell, whatever. Sorry, Mom and Dad. So this sort of reached a pinnacle when I was 18. I moved off to college and everything. And through the stress of that, the whole new situation, I was smoking a lot. I started buying cigarettes all the time, and I was going through probably about half a pack a day or two, maybe a full pack every 3 days or so. It really depended on the situation. But once you're around more adults that are smoking, you're probably just going to smoke a little bit more. That's just what happens. Through this, I was starting to get pretty winded pretty quickly, having to walk around for classes and everything. And being in a music degree, I had to take vocal classes as well. And when you're walking to your class and you're already short on breath and then you have to sing, you feel like you're going to die. It's not the best thing ever. Luckily, I had a friend that knew a little bit about vaping, so he took me to a local vape shop that was sort of nearby my college campus, and then I started there. I started on 12 nicotine. I had one of those old school little twist Evo batteries and like a crappy tank that had the wicks on the outside, if that sort of dates it. This was around 2013 or so, and then from then on, I pretty much didn't smoke anymore. It was sort of interesting transitioning, getting used to substance that had no sort of numbing agents in it that made it easier to smoke. This was a lot harsher than what I was used to from smoking. It was kind of like learning how to smoke all over again. And then from then, just kept doing it, stuck with it, bought a new mod. I actually have the battery still. The old Sigeli 150 watt. And then from there, it was just sticking with juices that I liked, and I wouldn't want to smoke. Every time I would go to try to have another cigarette, I'd gross out. I'd take a couple puffs and throw it away because I didn't want it anymore. I'd rather vape something that I enjoyed versus something that was a tobacco. From then on, my interest in the industry grew a bit more. I would talk with my roommates about like rebuilding coils and stuff because that was all the rage back in the day. Building your own coils. It looked cool. It sounded fun. It was a cool hobbyist thing to do. We always played around with the idea of starting a juice company before all the FDA regulations kind of got set in. And then after I was done with school and everything, I moved back to my hometown and not really knowing what I was going to do, if I was going to pick up a desk job or try to hustle and use my cool music degree to try to get a job, which that wasn't going to happen. From there, I started working at a vape store that was nearby, and their main directive really resonated with me, and it's to help people. That was their number one thing. Be a cool person and be willing to help people quit this really harmful thing. I stayed in the retail side of that company for about 2 years, and it was a great experience. I made great friends through that company, made great friends through the customers that would come in the door that would be regulars that I would know by name. I would see their car park in, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. They want this, this, and this. Have it ready for them, chat them up on everything. There were some customers that would just come in and only want me when we would come in. They would have their favorites. They'd be like, oh, I want this guy today. Or, oh, I'm going to wait. He's going to help me out when we want to chat about something. So it was a very tight-knit community of people that were just enthusiastic about the change in their life that they were making. From then, I started getting into the whole DIY approach and making my own e-liquids because working at a vape store, you're vaping a lot. You're going through a lot of money. Even though you do get discounts from working there, you end up cranking through a whole lot of juice. And from then, I got interested in the whole recipe development side of everything. And actually, let me show you a little something. Why don't you come here? So this is where I have all of my e-liquid making supplies and everything. I got the nicotine right there. I have all my test bottles in here, all my flavors and everything, my scale. I was working on a recipe earlier. Then through my company, I was able to transfer into the recipe development side, where I was working on generating new flavors for my company, creating new recipes. And actually, if you want some, since I'm not allowed to advocate for nicotine, we have a no nicotine sample right here. Go to mamazeliquid.com, pick up some Dope Whip. It's the Frio line. It's fruits, it's chili, it's cool. Literally and figuratively. It's got cooling in it. It's really nice. And then from then, our lab technician that was working at our e-liquid manufacturing site moved off to Seattle, and I was really the only person to fill that position. So now I'm currently working in a laboratory. I wear a lab coat. I wear face nets, all that fun stuff, booties. It's a full clean room environment. I work on the production side of it as well, bottling this stuff, labeling bottles, making sure everything is good, doing quality control and all this. So basically from the production side all the way to the giving the product to the consumer side, I've been in all of it, as well as a personal user for over 6 years. I feel that this really benefits a lot of people. It's something that I'm very enthusiastic about, and I've tried working with a lot of friends, a lot of family. I've converted a lot of family over from smoking to doing this. People that were doing smokeless tobaccos, cigarettes, cigars, all kinds of stuff, like being, hey, why don't you try this out? You can try a whole bunch of other flavors. If you like your tobaccos, that's cool. I can recommend some cool tobacco flavors for you. If you like fruits, I got you covered. Desserts, got you covered. Candies, coffees, menthols, whole 9 yards. I can hook you up with anything that you want. With the flavor ban legislation that's trying to be proposed around the country, I feel this creates a really big problem for not only the consumers, but the businesses. So we'll start with the consumers first. Taking away this option to vape flavored liquids is pretty much putting a nail in the coffin in a lot of people that are willing to change. A lot of people, when they go to vaping, they don't want a tobacco flavored vape. Not only do a lot of the tobaccos not exactly mimic what they're used to, and a lot of times we preface customers on that saying, hey, this isn't going to be exactly what you're used to, so it'll be a little bit different. Most of the time, if they come in and they're like, hey, I only want something that's comparable to the box of Reds that I've been smoking for 30 plus years, and I say, hey, you know what, why don't you try this blueberry cheesecake, and put it in front of them, it almost converts them like that. Like, why wouldn't you want to use something that's more pleasurable? You're more inclined to switch to something that you enjoy doing more than something that you already don't like doing. You don't like the taste, you don't like the smell. Why don't you go to something that's virtually odorless after you're done using it? If there is an odor, it's pretty pleasant. I don't think people would complain if they walked into your house and you're like, huh, it smells like coconut in here. Not only does this hurt consumers, it also hurts businesses. Now, I don't want to guesstimate, but I would say that the vaping industry is probably a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US. And this is something that's like, it's small businesses mainly. It's brick and mortar stuff. It's a couple people that own a shop and they want to help people out. With our company, granted, it's a little bit on a bigger scale because we do manufacturing. We do sell both nationally and internationally. We're exporting products, which is a good thing for us, and shutting down companies that export overseas is not really good for our economy, especially when we're one that's not taking in products as much. Ultimately, I feel like this is a real big hit to personal freedom. Doing some sort of prohibition on vape products isn't going to solve anything. It's never solved anything. Like alcohol prohibition, it's not going to work. You're going to basically just fund bootleggers and people that are just going to do this all on the black market. And from then on, you have less regulation on what people are actually putting in it. They can be anything. If you're going and just buying vape juice from a guy on the corner that doesn't have a business license, isn't really checking to see what's in it, that just wants to make a buck, you're probably not going to be getting the best quality of stuff versus things that are independently lab tested, regulated by the FDA in some way or another, and something that we actually use on a daily basis. I can vouch for our products. I can tell you that they're good. I can tell you from the years that I've been doing this, it's helped my health. It hasn't made me sick. I'm not dying. I'm healthier than I was when I was smoking. I digress a little bit, so I'm just going to wrap this whole video up here. Thank you for watching this. It was probably unnecessarily long, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out and wanted to try to give you the best information that I have and to advocate, hey, do some research for yourself. Look at surveys, look at scientific journals and everything. Again, thank you for watching this, and if you want any more information, you can go to casaa.org. You can find out more information about vape advocacy, non-smoking advocacy. You can make a donation or find out what to do in your local areas to try to help the situation. So thanks guys, appreciate it, and see ya!